Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. So, how things been going, Dave? Did you win anything at Toastmasters last night?
No, I got ripped off. It was fixed. It was you know,
Oh, the truth comes out, eh? It wasn't about I learned something last night. It was about I'm prize hungry.
no, I did learn something. I learned something from the orange guy down there. Every time anything doesn't go your way, it was fixed, or it was you know what I mean. The election was fixed. They were cheating. All that. It works pretty good. It's great for your ego, right? Well, I won again, but they cheated. They fixed it.
He fixed it. Okay, yeah, well, I'm not so sure that, not so sure. Well, fixing it, yeah, that's an interesting concept. I,
Well, I like that. I like to ask you this: how come I haven't won an Academy Award? It's fixed, Jay. It's fixed. I've been doing like, what about an Emmy? Right? An
well,
Emmy is for what's an Emmy for? It's for the best television show, right?
yeah,
Well, I've been doing bingo for over about 8 years now. Where's my Emmy? Definitely top of the rating there. I tell you, it's fixed.
okay, so and now we can cover on to this one. This Somali referee that the US, the USA banned. Um, so that's fixed, yeah.
Well, I think it's a result of American ignorance, basically. In this particular case, this is a referee, one of the FIFA referees. He happens to be
Yeah,
from Somalia.
yeah,
He's a 34-year-old guy, so he's a well experienced referee.
referee.
Referees are hard to find, and this is a particularly good one because it's a Somali referee, and there's no team in this tournament that he has to be biased for. If the
Yeah,
Somalia had a team in there, right, you would sort of, you could make an argument there might be somewhat biased somewhere along the line. This is a perfect guy.
well,
He's
you
a
can't ref
FIFA.
your own.
He's a FIFA level
Yeah,
referee, and
this
he
is a
has
this
no
is a
no
top
skin in the
notch.
game.
Yeah, this is a top notch. This is a world class referee. And the thing is, everybody hates referees. Let's be honest about it. There isn't a game. There isn't a sports game on the planet where the referee isn't the most hated person in the game. But equally well, we know that the refs are there to actually run, to control the game, to run the rules, right? To
Can't
make sure
have
the
a
rules.
game without a ref.
Yeah, you can't have a game without a ref. So the ref being barred from the USA, that's a disaster. That's bad. That's really bad. Let's make the month of July for Somalia, says Rick. Yeah.
Somalia.
Um, and the fact is that you're right. The fact is that he he actually being a referee from a nation that isn't in the World Cup is a good thing.
Yeah, he's not in the World Cup. He's a high level referee, well trained, 34 years old. He's been in the game of refereeing for a long time,
Yeah,
and yet they somehow they questioned him for 11 hours on Boko Haram, and he said he didn't know much about Boko Haram. Boko Haram is a terrorist group that that is
yeah,
active in Somalia. There are more than one terrorist group active in Somalia. Let me say, is it a country that's kind of fallen apart, and it's run by all tribal factions and terrorist groups. It would be probably impossible for you not to have to kind of if Boko Haram comes knocking at your door and says they want 10 pounds or so many dollars, you probably have to give it to them if you want to live the next day.
yeah.
So if the referees had any contact with Boko Haram, it would be something like that. Obviously, Boko Haram isn't exactly into football and
Yeah.
referees.
No.
So they basically they dumped him because they didn't know. right? They hammered him about Boko Haram for 11 hours and then tossed him out. And the reason why they tossed him out is because they didn't know. They didn't know anything.
Yeah.
It's the level of ignorance of the American, and well, I would include Canada too, but
Yeah. I'm glad he got
Americans are really, really ignorant this way. I have a cousin. Kind of went out of focus there.
Yeah, I don't know what
Are you
happened
there?
with you. You suddenly froze. Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
it's good he returned home with a hero's welcome. Usually referees don't want to be known. They kind of hide from the crowd. You don't want to see who I am.
Yeah. The only thing that gives them away is the super huge thick glasses that every referee really wears in real life.
Yeah.
Look, well, basically, look, I tell you how bad they are. I have a relative. His name, their last name is Ryala. Okay. Because it has Allah in it, she was stopped at the border. This is a blonde lady, a fair-skinned blonde lady, right? Middle aged at the time, and her her first name is Barbara, last name is Ryala, right? So lived in Canada all her life because she had Allah in her name. The name is Ryala because it had Allah in her name. They pulled over. That's how stupid they are. That's how ignorant they are over there. And it's unfortunate that the greatest, most powerful nation in the world happens to be the most ignorant for the average citizen.
Yeah.
They have the highest end education for those people who qualify to be higher end educated. But the average American citizen, sadly, and Canadian, I'll put out this way too, but mostly in the United States, it is appalling how ignorant they are. Yeah. And this is reflected in things like this in the FIFA thing.
Well,
go to any small little nation in Europe, and you'll find the average person is much more aware of the world and than the average American, sadly.
Yeah. This is also reflected in the next story that the U.S. State Department has basically moved to strip citizenship from 17 people in May alone, and basically the Biden administration filed 24 denaturalization cases in the entire 4 years, and Trump has done that, has more than doubled that in the last year.
Well, yeah. What basis did they use there in that article? I haven't read that for a few days.
The article is really not that brilliant, I have to say, because they're talking about the gained U.S. citizenship through an abuse of the process.
Well, a lot of people come in with under false pretenses. Up here in Canada, we find them every once in a while, and we seem to excuse them. People come in under false pretenses here all the time, and they do in the States as well. There was a time there that Air Canada flights, the toilets were being clogged because the toilets were full of fake passports, and just before they landed. So whoever was deciding what passport to use for a refugee claim, and then they flushed the rest of them down the toilet. So I don't know. I would think that this happens all the time. People come in under false pretenses. So yeah, sure, get rid of them. If they're in the country under false pretenses, sure, get rid of them. And I'm sure up here we could probably get 17 in half a minute if we looked hard enough. People that became citizens under false pretenses. You know, it's just because Canada and the United States are objects of objective places that people really want to be.
Yeah.
And they'll lie, cheat, steal to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't know. With this, just because it's more than it was under the Biden administration doesn't tell me much.
No, it doesn't.
I
Yeah.
of course know
I know.
that the U.S. is very like zeroing in on illegals. That's part of their the strategy or
Yeah,
the
it's just a part of that, right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's just a part of that whole process. All right. So we got a few.
it's the ones that are done for weak reasons.
Yeah,
What would Ireland think about what, Rick?
about that whole question, right? They can all work. They can all be welcome in Canada. Yeah. Okay. Time for Malala and hey?
Anchor babies? I don't even know what an anchor baby. Oh, anchor babies. Yeah, I know what they are. Yeah, yeah. So basically, what happens is a couple gets into Canada under a tourist visa or anything, any way of getting in, or their refugee claims are being reviewed. So the first thing to do is have a baby, and that's happening here, right in St. Catharines. I can tell you, I talked to nurses. There's in this they have to pay for their own baby. They don't get it under OHIP, but the urgency is to have a baby here. Once you have a baby here, then then your baby's a citizen, and that puts a lot of pressure on immigration to keep you. So no matter what reason you came into the country, you could claim all sorts of things that cannot be substantiated. But once you have a baby there, that puts a lot of strain on the Canadian officials because now they want to protect that baby and the baby's rights to stay here. So that is exactly what they do. As soon as they come in here, they as soon as possible, they have a baby. That's the whole point. And they do that in the States as well, too. They're anchor babies, right?
Yeah.
Come into the States, claim refugee status, have a baby. Now your kid's a citizen. Now you're going to throw us out? We're the family of that kid.
Yeah, but there's a number of people. There used to be a thing in Britain. I heard about people who they were 8 months pregnant and they were flying to the US to have the baby in the US, even though they've got no relationship at all with the US. They would just arrive in the US in the latter stages of their pregnancy so that their child would have US citizenship.
Yeah, people do that here. Yeah. People do that here in Niagara Falls. They'll get a baby doctor basically in the US. I know the last one I remember was when I was playing softball on my softball team. There was a young couple there, and she got pregnant, and right away they went to the United States to get a doctor over there. My friend. My friend's was born in the United States. His mother was American, but they made sure that he was born in the United States so he would have dual citizen, and his sister too. Yeah. So they could have dual citizen, and the people I knew on my baseball team, the same thing. They were Canadians, but made sure that they had a doctor in the States, and the baby was born there. Their kid's dual citizen. So it's very common practice here. Also, I know another fellow that ended up moving into the United States and working there. He was able to do the same thing because his family was smart enough to do that as well. It was very common here to have, before OHIP particularly, to go across the river, get a baby doctor over there, have your kids over there. They would have dual citizenship. So that was a common practice. But you don't have to worry about the anchor baby thing or refugees or of that kind of thing. It really wasn't frowned on. It was thought to be probably a pretty good idea back in those days. And here's Karen. I haven't kept track, so I'm wondering what the Jim is setting up for the FIFA games, right where Ford wants to put the big wheel. I hope he isn't causing a whole lot of damage. I don't think he's. Well, actually, I don't know what his opinion is on the giant wheel, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it happen, even with strong mayor powers.
Yeah, and here's the thing about this is that let's go on to the mayor of Niagara Falls next. right? Because the mayor of Niagara Falls is actually going to Turkey and Bulgaria on a trade mission, and there's an he's there with economic development officer Michael Wachala, and appears to be going as an ongoing effort to attract foreign trade investment into Niagara Falls. And according to reports, they were invited to meet with government and business leaders in both Bulgaria and Turkey to discuss potential investment opportunities and economic partnership involving Niagara Falls.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good thing. I don't think it has anything to do with the Ferris wheel or anything like that. What Karen was talking about, she said she isn't really up on what's happening, but we could tell her this anyway, that the mayor has gone to taken advantage of some opportunities there, invited to Turkey and to Bulgaria. This was odd to me too, because I thought this is a good sign. Just the fact that Bulgaria and Turkey together came to solicit the mayor and tried to get some kind of cooperation economically, because Bulgaria and Turkey.
Well, I hope it does.
Because wait until I finish. Because Bulgaria and Turkey, to me, they were arch enemies for many years.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
You know.
And I hope this doesn't turn into another Thundering Waters episode, you know, with the Chinese.
It doesn't seem to be anything like that. It seems to be more like trade cooperation, probably more along the line of tourism destination cooperation. You know, because Turkey and Bulgaria have, well, particularly Turkey, have extraordinary cultural and historical backgrounds. God, Turkey's civilization, there's been settlements there from 10,000 BC on.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. And of course, you're talking about the Lydians, you're talking about the Greeks, you're talking about the Seljuk Turks, you're talking about the Ottoman Turks. It just goes on and on and on about the historical and things that are available for the average tourist over there. Troy is in Turkey.
Absolutely, but I'm hoping it's not just I'm hoping it's to bring industry into Niagara Falls that actually helps develop good paying jobs here in Niagara Falls.
I can't see that happening one bit, because I can't see any industry that Turkey or Bulgaria could bring here. It would be nice. I can see stuff that they make and bring over here to trade, and we trade back something, I don't know, agricultural, because they talked everything. They talked agricultural, industrial, everything. They were encouraged by Carney, it says in the article. They really, really like how Carney is presenting himself around the world, and this has sort of given them hope for to connect trade-wise, because they could see that the smaller, the mid-level powers of the world, Canada included, are being squeezed between China and the United States. China is slapping us around from one side, the United States is slapping us around for the other. The United States used to be our pal, but it's not now. Economically, culturally, yes, it still is. So they see an opening here. They see encouragement from the initiatives of Carney. I do too, actually. I do too. I think what Carney's doing, opening up world markets like that, he's taking advantage of a situation where the two hegemons are vying for complete power, and that leaves room for the mid powers to conduct business on their own.
Well, okay. So Mike says a point which is worrisome to me. Truly sounds like a waste of money for a mayor to go to a country and do what? Yeah, it sounds like one of those. Yeah, we're going to waste a bit of Niagara Falls money on this, and that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, there's no taxpayer money involved in this, so they claim.
Yeah.
They claim that it isn't clear where the money comes from. It says what it is, but I don't know the source of that.
Yeah.
It says it's international officials. Diodati said all expenses are being covered by international officials and include flights, accommodations, and meals. Who are the international officials?
Yeah. Yeah. Is this
Okay,
bribery?
well, make that clear, please. Make that clear.
Yeah.
Is it Canadian taxpayer money from the federal side?
It is. Are we getting? That's exactly those words are actually what's coming to me is saying, are we getting another Thundering Waters, the Chinese implementation, thing? And Ricky asks, is he buying the jet from Doug Ford?
Yeah, Doug doesn't know to do that jet now. Maybe Jim will buy it.
Yeah.
So
okay,
Diodati and Warchala. Okay, go ahead.
So Mike is saying Russia calling Canada a warmonger for a Hamilton company making drones. Come on, all we need is a vacation. Yeah. That's the worrying factor that I'm having, an all expenses paid vacation that Jim is having on us.
Well, that Russian comment, that's like a coal generator plant accusing a guy of vaping as someone who's polluting.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, you're polluting the atmosphere because you're vaping. Yeah. Look at these smokestacks up here. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So anyway, the Istanbul Chamber of Commerce, Warchala is the other one, is the other person involved here. So Diodati said he and Warchala met with Istanbul Chamber of Commerce officials. Istanbul Chamber of Commerce is the second largest in the world. It has 860,000 business members.
Wow.
So of the 860,000 business members, they may see opportunities here in Niagara or in Canada in general. Definitely get your word out in Istanbul. You can bring a lot of tourists there. Istanbul is a huge city. Yeah. Turkey is a developing nation, despite the fact that of Erdogan and his questionable politics and everything. Turkey's in a very good position to grow very well moving forward. It's in a perfect position in the world right now between Europe and Asia. Yeah. To transmit oil and gas, to make advantage of it can grow anything you want. So there is opportunities there. And he talked about agricultural opportunities back and forth. I'm sure that Turks would like to sell us a lot of agricultural goods as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, and again, if it makes sense and brings something in to the city, I'm in favor of it. But I'm very cautious about there being wrongdoing here. And really,
I can't see anything leading to that at this particular point. It is a
no, I'm not saying there is. I'm just being cautious.
Well, I wouldn't want to be too cautious. I want to be open and get the business going, get the trade back and forth going. If a big Bulgarian conglomerate wants to buy Thundering Meadows or whatever, you know what I mean? Then you can think, well, what's that all about? But if they're trying to sell their dates to us, and send their tourists here and encourage us to go and do tourism there in Bulgaria and Turkey, I think it's a good thing. Right now, it's they're just kind of looking at working the markets and the cultures and all that difference. I think it's just a door that's beginning to open. Now, I don't know why they're probably doing this all over Canada, inviting officials from different parts of Canada to come. Yeah. They may have started with Niagara Falls or something like that because it's a famous tourist town or whatever. But I don't know. That's probably a good thing over all in all. Anything to bring money here and to open a market, that's a good thing.
maybe they're opening a plant just down the road here in the cyanamid in the old cyanamid land, because after all they don't know any of the history of cyanamid, do they?
I don't know. I think the Turks make the best hookahs, though, don't they?
Possibly, yeah. There you go. There you go. Okay, moving on. BC's credit rating has been downgraded. It's down to they say lowering the baseline credit rating from AA1 to AA2. Right, but yet the Premier David Eby is defending this. He's saying, you know, we got a choice to make, and basically keeping British Columbians healthy is the right choice.
Yeah, I read this article. I was very disappointed. This is the forever spiral into debt, isn't it? The BC is spending much more money than it can afford. So the credit rate, including the S&P 500, but other credit ratings have downgraded its credit. When you downgrade your credit, that means you pay more interest payments.
Yeah.
Which means if you pay more interest payments, then that adds to your debt.
Yeah.
The downgrade of interest level is a punishment to you because you have not organized your finances well enough according to banking interests. This happened to Ontario under Bob Rae. We took a big hit from rating agencies when we were under Bob Rae in the 90s. That reduced our credit rating, which made our debt much more expensive. So when your debt gets more expensive, you need to borrow more money to pay for your debt. So when you do that, the rating agency sees, okay, you're borrowing money to pay your debt. If you're borrowing money to pay your debt, then you're going to get a higher interest rate, so on and so on and so forth. So what you do is you continue to spiral down, 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 because it's a never-ending thing. My debt is bigger. I have to borrow more money to pay that debt. When I borrow more money to pay the debt, I incur more interest payments, which makes my economy harder to pay for that. Now the BC Premier, he is saying that it can't be helped. We have to keep these public services going. So there is a line. How much can you afford?
Yeah.
And that's it. How much can you afford? If you want your people to get a better public services, it costs you a lot more to do that. Where does it pay off and where doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
it's like building the perfect automobile that's the safest automobile on the road would cost $100,000 for something the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, but you are 99% perfectly covered in that car. So is it viable to do that? To build a car that will cost you $100,000 that normally would cost $30,000 to make you perfectly safe? Or do you make yourself pretty safe by building a car that's crash tested and stuff like that? And has, so that's basically the same thing I see here.
Yeah.
Like, where are you going to go? How much are you going to spend to protect your social services? Because the more you protect them, the more they cost, and pretty soon you won't be able to afford them.
But again, BC Conservative leader Trevor Hartford is saying that the financial markets are telling the government of BC that it's going broke.
That's exactly right. But on the other hand, the same rating agency said there is hope for BC because it has a variety of things that participate in its economy. So it's not a single source economy. You might be able to argue that Alberta, take away the oil out of Alberta, and then you would have a collapsed economy. You can't say that about BC. BC has a variety of things that make money for it. It's a diverse economy.
Yeah.
However, it's not exactly it's like every democracy on the planet now. Every politician gets in, and the only way they see of sustaining their power is borrowing more money than they can afford. This has gone on for every government. The only one that turned that way was the Liberal government under Jean Chrétien, and then later under Paul Martin, and in the United States under Clinton. They're the only administrations in recent history that have turned that around and began to pay down the debt. Yeah. This makes the financial companies very, very nervous because they want the countries to be as much in debt as possible because they make the most money. The only time that they begin to worry about their investment in provinces or states or countries is when those provinces, states, and countries are getting to the point where they may not be able to pay back anything. Basically speaking, there is a threshold which they see. Now, for individuals, it's much easier. You go into your bank, and if you're paying 40% of your income in loans, they're happy. That's exactly where you want to be. As soon as you get up to the place where you're 42%, they cut you off. Yeah. No more loans for you, yeah. No more everything. Yeah. They want you maxed out at 40%. That's the ideal position every financial company wants you at. There is Joe Smith over there, and he's got a loan for his car, and he's got a mortgage, but he makes enough money that we can actually push him to borrow more money, get a bigger car, get all this. We'll offer him a lot until he gets to that 40% threshold or whatever that threshold is. Then we cut him off. But with government's a little bit different. So they cut them off in bits and pieces. And we discussed here what happened in New York City when it looked for financing back in the 80s, and nobody came and gave them financing, and they couldn't run the city. So what the banks did instead was they said, all right, we'll help you out, but we're cutting you out. We're the ones that are going to make the decisions on what city services are included and which ones aren't. And then we are the ones that are going to control your finances. Unfortunately, we don't want to get to that point with our provinces, do we?
No. Yeah. Absolutely, we don't want to be there.
So basically speaking, I don't understand. Like, I think the average citizen has to be more educated in finances because we all want everything. Gimme, gimme, gimme. We want this, that, and the other thing. And some of it's good, healthcare and all that other stuff. We just have to begin to prioritize. And where we have to cut back, we have to cut back. Because what we're doing is really making all these services much more expensive every time we borrow money, which in the end limits our ability to advance those services. Mm-hmm. So to be fiscally responsible, we hear it all over in particularly, we've heard it in Canada many years now, but in the United States, you got guys like Rand Paul who point us out continually. The biggest threat to the United States is not Iran, not China. It's the internal debt.
Mm. Yeah. All right. Okay. So moving on from that, France and Germany basically scrapped their individual fighter jets, and they're damaging the European defense cooperation, allegedly.
This may be an overstated article. France and Germany have tried to get a fighter jet thing going, and it just hasn't worked. It didn't work this time. Remember, France being able to coordinate with the biggest economic country in Europe is Germany, followed by France. So anyway, I'm going to read what Karen says here. My brother went to Istanbul and said the air raid sirens went off so many times, calling people to pray, that he said he would never go back. Was it the air raid sirens, or was it the air raid siren? Well, they do 5 times a day. They do They fly 5 times a day. Yeah. And I didn't know they did it with air raid sirens. I thought they did it with a call to prayer.
No, I don't think it's air raid sirens. I think it's called to prayer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
About, you know, that kind of chant they do.
Yeah.
Very similar to the chants in Jewish.
Well, basically, okay. So all right. Yeah, I was just catching up on those because I hadn't done them before. On those ones. Okay, so bringing us back to the France and Germany scrapping their thing. I think basically what there is there's been the Eurofighter, which they've had for years. They're talking about it, but you know, the US is putting up pressure to actually make Europe become more military independent, but yet you know, I think the challenge here has been that France and Germany, for example, have both been off doing independent things, and they're trying to get back on track.
I think they'll sort this out because the Americans made it very plain: we cannot afford you anymore. I think this is a very good for the Europeans to take on more of their own defense. Of course, they have been shirking their duties because Big Brother USA always had their back.
Yeah.
So they got all the jets, they got all everything. We don't need much. But now the U.S. has said, no. Remember, it wasn't just Trump. That's been leading up to this for 20 years.
Yeah.
Where the U.S. has complained vehemently that Europe and Canada haven't really paid up their duties. But when it looked like after the collapse of the Soviet Union and all that, we thought, well, the world's in a much more peaceful place. We won't need all that. Trudeau has even said something of the kind. But they were wrong. Very, very wrong. That's why we canceled our fighter jet contract. When the Liberals got in 2015, they canceled the fighter jet contract. 5 or 6 years later, when the Ukraine war started, they hurriedly went and renewed that contract and made it much more expensive for us, idiots. Anyway, so the fact is that the Europeans are going to do this. The biggest question, though, is the Europeans and Canada came to the rescue of the United States on 9/11 when they attacked Afghanistan. NATO backed them up. Article 5 was invoked. The only time ever in NATO history that Article 5 was invoked. And the ignorant Americans think that it never happened. They have to be reminded constantly because they keep saying they'll never come to help us. They'll never come to help us.
Yeah.
And the only time that it was ever invoked, everyone did help them.
Yeah.
And lost soldiers in a distant land when a U.S., not any other country, got attacked. So that is the only time. And the real question with Europeans, will the United States have our back if Russia attacks?
Yeah.
Right now, the biggest threat, of course, to Europe is Russia. They're attacking Ukraine right now continually. If they do conclude their Ukrainian war, then they will probably start to pick off the smaller nations around them. Putin is in an expansive place. That's what he is doing. Until that government is out, they're going to be expansive. They're going to want to be back to the empire they were under the Soviet Union. They're going to want Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia. They're going to want a piece of Poland. They're going to want all this stuff. So, unfortunately, it's draining whatever is left of the Russian economy, and it's killing thousands of people every day. So, oh well. But Europe still has to defend itself. You've got
all that's happened here is that all that's really happened here is the French authorities and the German authorities have both decided that they've got some that they were going to scrap some what they've called troublesome projects, and that they're looking to actually consolidate on more successful because they're still looking at future combat air systems and expected to put about $116 billion into new planes.
Yeah, it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. This particular effort may have failed, but they're going to come up with something. They have to.
Yeah.
They have to. And it's long overdue. So they can, as much as they are annoyed by the way in which the Trump administration did this to them, it's a wake-up call. They should have been woken up a long time ago. And us too, basically Canada too. We should have been more responsible and put up rather, you know what I mean? We should have been doing our due diligence. We promised to put 2% into NATO protection, and we never did. As a matter of fact, the Harper government dropped it down to 1% or less than 1%.
Well, we're back at we're over the 2% now.
We are. We're going to hit that 2%. I don't think we've hit it yet, but we're going to try to get up to 3.5. I think the projection is 5%. When Trump came up with it, everyone said he sounded ridiculous. But given what's happened in the world today, that's probably the right place to be. So as much as I dislike the bombast, the guy and his techniques and his overall ignorance, he was right about that. But that, to be fair to people that came before him, the military in the United States that came before him have warned about this over and over again, that their allies are not putting up enough money and are not taking this seriously enough.
And Trump does not want to be part of the New World Order. UK and Canada want that to happen.
Define the New World Order.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody said anything about the New World Order. Bush Sr. was the guy that talked about the New World Order back in the 80s. I don't know, there's a lot being said about the New World Order, but tell me what the New World Order is. That, like, everybody says, oh, well, we don't want the New World Order, but nobody's really seriously defined the New World Order. What basically normally when you talk about the New World Order is when the shift of powers happens. So NATO in the United States and with NATO was the premier power from the point of the collapse of the USSR until now.
Rick is talking about the International Monetary Fund.
International Monetary Fund. So the U.S. is going to have to be part of that because it is essential to its own being. The International Monetary Fund and all these things are processes which the Americans have helped along, have helped create.
Well, America's been a huge part of the IMF. US, Britain, France have been, key to the foundation of the IMF since the Second World War.
Well, we're assuming here that it's the IMF, but I seriously don't know that we are continually going to get the New World Order. Basically, what I can see is no matter what they talk about, it's usually thought to be political, but really what it is, it's hegemony. The New World Order now sees the United States and China as the two hegemonies. From 1990 to about 2010, the United States had everything in its own. It was the premier hegemony. Right now, you have two. So we're back into the Cold War type of situation where you had the USSR and its allies versus the United States and its allies.
Yeah,
and now
Cold War nonetheless. Yeah.
So now what we have is the rising power, China, bucking heads with some say declining power, the USA. So comparisons with as the United States declines, as Britain declined, as the French and Dutch declined before them, et cetera, et cetera. So the argument is that you have a new kid on the block, and he's pretty tough, and he's going to challenge for the authority. What the Trump administration seems to be doing is they want to divide the world into hemispheric areas of control. We take North America and South America. We'll take Australia, North America, South America, parts of Europe, and you can have Taiwan and Mongolia and this and that and whatever. So they're trying to say you're the boss over there, we'll be the boss over here. Yeah. That is the change in the new world order as far as I see. Everyone else thinks it's economic, and it could be. We will have to find out how the AI will affect all of this. This is the new kid on the block. Just like when somebody discovered how to make bronze, they were the toughest dude on the block because they have bronze weapons and they could beat everyone else with their bronze weapons. And then somebody come up with iron weapons and they could beat people with the bronze weapons, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, so
okay.
Yeah.
And talking of AI, by the way, Ottawa is introducing a new bill regulating the use of social media and AI for under 16-year-olds.
This is a good thing.
That is actually going to happen. Not a chance you're going to implement that.
Well, the social media companies in Australia have taken out anyone under 16 years old and canceled their accounts. So we are following the lead of Australia. Not only that, do they have a digital sort of a policeman to watch over to make sure that it isn't cheated upon. Yes, it's going to be hard to police because all you do is, like, a kid's going to use his father or his mother's phone or whatever account. But it is a step in the right direction. And the reason why it is and why it's so urgent and why I think it's a little bit late, right, but I'm glad that it's happening, is because social media is extremely addictive. And I can tell you that myself because I sit here on AI and I start scrolling. I'm big on news and history and stuff like that. Before I know it, 2 hours are up. So my phone knows the things that I'm interested in and starts feeding me it. You know, like lately I've been interested in religions, right? World religions. So I get tons of stuff of that, you know, particularly the ancient sources of religions. And so I get that fed to me constantly. So I'm just scrolling around, watching this video, watching that video. And before too long, it's 2, maybe 3 hours are gone. I haven't got anything done. And that's unusual for me because I usually get nothing done without distractions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're not in the group that they want to limit. They're basically saying that it's children under 16-year-olds that shouldn't have access to this kind of stuff. I'm amongst the group that think it's actually something for the parents to control. I didn't give my son access to a computer until he was 12. Right, and then we basically worked with him to ensure that he did use the computer for meaningful things. He was writing most of the time. You know.
So obviously, you okay. To me, it's like smoking. Go back 50 years, right? You don't let your kid go and buy cigarettes. Like I used to go to the store and buy cigarettes for company that came to our house, right? So somebody come to our house and they'd want smokes. Okay, Dave, go to the, you know, and I'd be 8, 9 years old, something. I go to the store and get them. After a while, I couldn't buy them because too many kids were smoking. So the government come along and says, no, you got to be a certain age. And before that, you had to have a note, though. You had to have a note from your parents. And I'd go to a place called Aussie Smoke Shop in Scarborough, and I'd hand the guy a note, right? And then he'd get the cigarettes I wanted and tell me how much he owed, you know, and I'd give him the money and then take the cigarettes and the change back to whoever company we had.
Yeah.
So after a while, though, they said, no, not even with a note can kid buy cigarettes, right? Because there wasn't enough parent ability for the parent to control that. Now, you said you wouldn't allow your kid, but who knows where he would get a phone nowadays? He could get a phone. He could go to a friend's house, and they could they could get into all kinds of mischief on social media. The fact of the matter is, social media is a predatory system. Not all social media is, but enough of it is that it knows how to addict the viewer. There's hours and hours. What they find is the kids are doing hours and hours and hours of scrolling, and this is not really that good for them, is it? If they're doing hours and hours of scrolling, that means they're not outside getting exercise. That means they're not doing their homework. That means they're not doing anything. Talk to any school teacher that tries to conduct a class when the kids have phones. Kids can't stay off their phones, even in a classroom where the teacher's watching them. So the teacher has to collect the phones at the beginning of the class, put them in a box, and then they distribute them back out after the class is over, because kids cannot resist what's on the phone. Adults can't resist it. I just told you what happens to me, right?
Yeah.
I have to address my YouTube addiction. You know, I think it's a very good idea. I think it's a very, very good idea. And what's happened, and we're following the example of in Australia, that's happened in Australia. Somewhere along the line, it has been determined that kids are being radicalized on social media, and at least one major big shooting happened because kid got radicalized on social media. I think it's important. I think it's like, you cannot buy alcohol at a certain age, right? Because we know that it wouldn't be good for a little kid to get a hold of alcohol. It wouldn't be good for a 10-year-old to go and buy a couple of cans of beer at the corner store and then get drunk with his friends. So we don't let that happen, right? It's alcohol addiction is hard enough on adults.
I'm still very uncertain about this. I'm of the group that says that it's up to the parents to do this, but I'm also recognizing that we've got a lot of parents who seemingly haven't a clue about anything in life.
Well, I just told you what happens in the classroom and why they're trying to limit phones in the classroom, because the parents aren't in the classroom. The parents can say all day long, you get no internet until your homework's done when you get home. But it doesn't say that once you go to school, I can't be sitting beside you and take your phone away when you're not paying attention.
Well, right? I think that kids shouldn't be taking phones to school anyway.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there completely. But how do you control that? That's another thing you control. But what you can do is cancel all the kids' accounts. If you're under 16 years old, you don't get a YouTube account. You don't get a Facebook account. You don't get anything else, right? You have to be mature enough to be able to handle it.
Yeah. Well, the irony here, of course, is there's always going to be kids who are mature enough to be able to handle it, even at 10 or 12.
Yeah, but that's the rare thing. You can get a kid that's 12 years old that can drive a car better than an old lady can drive a car. But seriously, most kids 12 years old, you won't want to trust behind the wheel, do you?
Exactly.
Right. So so for the 1 or 2% that can handle it, you have to restrict it. That's just what you do. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a really good initiative. I think it's late in coming, though. I think a lot of damage has been done to kids through social media. I think it's interfered with their intellectual and emotional development. I think this is a good try. I don't know how well it's going to work, though.
Well, I also get the idea that, for example, not using AI, essentially what's going to end up happening is that you're going to have social accounts that are going to be created whereby it's like there's no digital ID, for example. You've got nothing that I can actually prove how old I am by giving you my driving license. We don't have a digital ID that allows us to validate how old we are.
I don't know. Like, they have done that already, as I've said. They have.
Yeah.
Social media companies have dropped off discontinued the accounts of anyone under 16 years old. I think that happened in Australia. So.
Yeah, I can see the kid though basically saying, "Okay, I'm going to mark myself as being 18, so therefore, any date earlier than 2014, I can get away with.
Okay.
No, 2004, I can get away with, right?
Well, they say they have policing methods, but we'll see. Anyway,
Yeah,
we're getting close to the end of the show here.
yeah,
I'd like to bring up Gaza again. Unfortunately, I heard yesterday somebody on social media talk about Gaza, and they supporting Israel, saying that that Hamas attack on October 7th justified what Israel is doing in Gaza, killing 72,000 people, and that unfortunately this is another area where most of us are really ignorant. We don't realize that this war between the Palestinians and Israelis has been going on since 1897. Basically, it was huge in the 40s. Nobody remembers the Jewish terrorist groups that were in what is now Israel prior to 1948. And then after that, the Jewish government became a government of terror, basically, and the massacres have happened back and forth. They've been happening back and forth from day one of of the Zionist movement. Zionist movement was made to dispel, get rid of Arabs and Palestinians basically that lived what is now Israel, which was then Palestine, out. And they now want to expand those areas. So anybody who says, well, Israel is on our side because it's a democracy, got to get your head into a history book. Start reading what really happened. We're being fed a lot of rubbish, and it's usually because it's religious based stuff. So we think, oh, Israel good, Palestinians bad. Palestinians attack. Yeah, I denounced that attack on October 7th, but it's just one more attack in a long line of attacks back and forth. One more terrorist attack that answers a different terrorist attack. And just because the nation of Israel is a nation conducting terror, doesn't give it any more license to do it than does I'm telling you, Yahya Sinwar and Bibi Netanyahu are mirror images of each other.
Yeah,
they're both ruthless, bloodthirsty, and that's their answer to the differences that they have. And it's time for the world to step in because we've given the Israel way too much allowance here. And when we look at it now, and the comments as I heard, whether it's on trigonometry or wherever, conservative or right or left wing views on this, it's born in ignorance. Get a book, start reading the history of it. Maybe you'll understand a few things. Open your eyes to what's happening on the West Bank. These are people under occupation. It's not just that they bottle them up and they don't allow them to have votes or anything like that. They are crushing them, taking their lands. And for anybody that is an Islamophobe, don't forget there's lots of Christians there whose lands are being pushed around and taken out. So open your eyes, really. We've been Israeli centric for way too long. Open our eyes, see what's going on over there, right? We wouldn't accept it in South Africa. Why are we accepting it in Israel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.